This is textbook authoritarian takeover 101.
I knew I should have taken that class. And not majored in submissive liberal crying 101.
We all know Rachel Maddow thrives on drama, especially when it comes to taking shots at Donald Trump. Some of the most outlandish claims in recent memory have come straight from her MSNBC chair. But if you've ever wondered when someone on the left would finally call her out, your wait is officially over. Jon Stewart just stepped up and delivered a blistering reality check that has the internet in an uproar. Yes, it's real. And yes, we've got the receipts. So buckle up, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's break down every jaw-dropping moment.
4 hours of Joe Scarborough shouldn't be allowed in this country. and then like Rachel Maddow, like it's schizophrenic at times. Like, yeah, I do think there should be some semblance of an idea that, look, they're kicking progressive ass right now. And if progressives don't organize their media, their think tanks and all that, it's going to continue to happen. It's chaos.
Jon Stewart recently dropped some scathing and, let's be honest, much needed commentary on both Joe Scarborough and MSNBC as a whole, which we'll get into later. But first, let's focus on what he said about Rachel Maddow, because it wasn't just harsh, it was surgical. Stewart didn't mince words. He described her show as schizophrenic, and not in the casual, chaotic sense. He meant it in the sense that Maddow appears to be in her own insulated echo chamber, crafting imaginary scenarios, and then reacting to them as if she's engaged in a meaningful discussion. Except it's all just her, talking to herself. Think about it. TV is supposed to be a platform for communication. There should be a message that connects, engages, maybe even invites reflection or debate. But in Stewart's view, Maddow's program has devolved into something else entirely. A televised monologue where she speculates wildly, then responds to her own speculation like she's co-hosting with her imagination. There's no real-time pushback, no outside input, no sense of a broader conversation, just Rachel spinning theory into drama. It's polished performance, sure, but Stewart questions whether it's even still journalism or just narrative theater cloaked in political urgency.
This is textbook authoritarian takeover 101.
I knew I should have taken that class. And not majored in submissive liberal crying 101.
So, what exactly did Rachel Maddow label as authoritarianism this time? Here's the rundown. She was reacting to President Trump's decision to fire 17 administrative judges. Yes, judges he had full legal authority to dismiss and replace. That's right, it was a completely lawful, procedurally sound move. But Maddow? She spun it into a warning siren of authoritarian doom, suggesting that Trump's use of presidential discretion was somehow a threat to democracy itself. To her, following the legal framework is no longer just governance, it's a creeping form of fascism. Trump, simply exercising powers granted by law, became a symbol of democratic collapse. It's a wild leap, but if you followed Maddow's takes over the years, this isn't out of character. She has a pattern. Take a routine political action and escalate it into a full-blown constitutional crisis. So when Jon Stewart called her show schizophrenic, he wasn't just being snarky, he was pointing to a consistent pattern of hyperbole. Instead of news reporting, it often feels like a one-woman stage performance, full of shadowy villains and imagined peril. And if you think this is just spin, don't take my word for it. Watch the clip and decide for yourself.
Not to be boring here for a second, but just getting very real. We now are just another one in the list of countries that has decided to, hey, what the heck, let's try the strongman thing. There are many more countries in the world governed by that kind of a system than there are governed by ours. We are the only 248-year-old multiracial, pluralistic democracy in the world. And shall we keep it? A lot of our fellow Americans say we shouldn't. See, what they really don't want is for those tens of millions of Americans to wake up tomorrow feeling scrappy as hell. So now we can work full-time on being fricking pirates. on being a thorn in the side to anyone who now intends to try to turn this country into some tin pot tyranny. Hope you are feeling scrappy. Hope you are tapping into your inner pirate energy. Because it is one thing to be a defender of the realm. It is another thing to be in opposition. And opposition can be a lot of things. It can be dangerous. It can also be fun. It would have been nice to win the election. Didn't. Okay. Time to save the country.
Rachel Maddow's fear-mongering is operating at full volume. The apocalyptic tone, the cries about the end of democracy, it's all cranked to 11. Why? Because her preferred political party didn't win an election. And now, in Maddow's world, the sky is falling. According to her, Donald Trump's return to political relevance is tantamount to the collapse of American civilization. It's no longer about policy or governance. It's doom, gloom, and dictatorship. This kind of theatrical hysteria isn't just tiring, it's toxic. It doesn't clarify, it distorts. Maddow isn't providing sober analysis. She's performing a live-action meltdown disguised as journalism. And here's the irony. This relentless fear narrative is exactly what drives voters away from the Democratic Party. The average American isn't glued to MSNBC for emotional therapy. They want clarity, not crisis acting. People are exhausted by being told every Republican victory equals the end of the Republic. They're tuning out, walking away, and looking for voices that offer balance over breathlessness. When media figures like Maddow treat every setback like Armageddon, they push moderates and independents straight into the arms of the opposition. This isn't activism, it's alienation. And the Democratic Party is paying the price for it.
Democrats just lost everything. They control nothing. They control, they don't control the House, they don't control the Senate, they don't control the White House, and they don't control the Supreme Court. So now is the time to break some, and break some China.
They do control.
When prominent voices like Jon Stewart, Jen Psaki, and even Bill Maher start criticizing their own party, you know the wheels are coming off. These aren't outsiders or fringe contrarians. They're deeply entrenched figures in the liberal mainstream. And yet, even they can't overlook how disconnected the Democratic Party has become from the reality most Americans live in. Unfortunately, much of that detachment has been fueled by networks like MSNBC, and no one embodies that drift more than Rachel Maddow. Instead of highlighting the strengths or vision of Democratic candidates, Maddow and her network have spent years hyper-fixated on one singular obsession: Donald Trump. She's made a career out of dissecting and dramatizing Trump soundbites, often stripped of context, to spin entire narratives of doom. It's not objective reporting. It's primetime performance art. And while it may keep a certain audience emotionally charged, it leaves others with nothing concrete. No policies, no leadership, no plan, just constant outrage. That formula might spike ratings in the short term, but it's a disaster at the ballot box. Voters are catching on. They want solutions, not stage plays. And when they realize there's no substance behind the spectacle, they check out. That's what we're witnessing. Voter fatigue fueled by media theatrics.
She is stomach turning, isn't she? It could be, you're in danger. What are you going to do with your 10 houses and your tens of millions? My God, you better start preparing. You should start getting the medication kits and the food right now. Store away. Trump is coming for you, Rachel. Jeez, could be fun. Could be fun. Oh yeah, who would ever know what it's like for MSNBC to be in the opposition? Oh wait, Russia.
It's genuinely stomach-turning to watch media elites like Rachel Maddow spiral into what can only be described as full-blown Trump derangement syndrome. These media personalities live in curated echo chambers, far removed from the realities faced by working-class Americans. They sip expensive lattes in air-conditioned studios, while average families struggle to stretch paychecks amid skyrocketing grocery prices, unaffordable rent, and inflation that spiraled out of control during the later years of the Biden administration. But where was Maddow's outrage then? Instead of holding accountable the leaders responsible for economic instability, she sharpened her attacks on Donald Trump again. And it's not hard to see why. Her comfortable six-figure salary depends on it. This relentless fixation isn't about seeking justice or uncovering truth. It's about protecting her brand, maintaining influence, and keeping the outrage engine roaring. For Maddow and others like her, attacking Trump isn't courageous. It's profitable. Her platform survives not on solutions, but on perpetual division. If she ever dared to confront the real struggles facing average Americans or hold her own party accountable, she'd risk alienating her base and, even worse, putting her paycheck in jeopardy. For Maddow, narrative preservation comes before honest journalism every single time.
But the "this is all fascist" argument has become almost a reflex for the left.
Donald Trump promised to be a dictator on day one, and he's carried that forward through the entire week.
5 days into this administration, the abuse is already rampant.
On a fascism scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being peak fascism, how would you rate Trump's first week?
Funny how some journalists throw around loaded terms just to cast Trump as a villain. In their world, facts play second fiddle to outrage. Truth becomes optional when drama drives ratings and the narrative takes priority. It's not journalism anymore. It's theater dressed up as righteous reporting for clicks.
I would say it's not fascism. Do I not understand what fascism is? Republicans control the House, the Senate, the executive, and the judiciary.
Jon Stewart continues by clarifying that just because Republicans currently hold significant control across several branches of government, that doesn't automatically qualify Donald Trump as a fascist. In this case, power wasn't stolen or imposed. It was earned through the democratic process. American voters made their voices heard and elected these officials into office. This isn't an authoritarian coup. It's democracy functioning as intended. The Constitution was built to reflect the will of the people, even when that will frustrates cable news commentators or contradicts the preferences of coastal elites. To suggest that Republican leadership somehow signals creeping fascism is not only disingenuous, it's dangerously misleading. Throwing around such heavy labels cheapens their true meaning and insults the millions of Americans who participated lawfully in the electoral process. Political disagreement doesn't grant permission to distort reality or demonize those on the other side with hyperbolic rhetoric. Losing an election doesn't mean democracy is broken. It means the system is working, even if the outcome isn't what some wanted.
We know your trick, Madam Pirate. When you're in the opposition, your nobility in your efforts to save the country, you fucking lie. That's what you do. You lie every day. And then you play the victim. What a ridiculous person. She is such a great example of what happens to these media people.
Rachel Maddow's towering pile of misleading narratives and half-truths could probably fill an entire newsroom, maybe even a network headquarters. Yet somehow, she still manages to cast herself as the perpetual victim, as though Donald Trump is solely responsible for every twist in her career. It's almost theatrical, a reality show masquerading as journalism, designed to provoke emotion and shield her from any real accountability. What's most revealing, however, is Maddow's selective outrage. Throughout the Biden administration's failures, soaring inflation, a worsening border crisis, rising global instability, her silence was deafening. There were no tough questions, no fiery monologues, no challenges to power when it came from her own political tribe. That's not objective journalism. It's partisan activism disguised by a polished teleprompter delivery. Her credibility doesn't stem from honest reporting. It relies on preserving a narrative. And whenever that narrative begins to unravel, she falls back on the same exhausted strategy: blame Trump. It's predictable, it's tired, and increasingly, it's losing the public's trust. The American people deserve better.
Rachel Maddow doesn't know any of that. She doesn't know any of that. She's made so much money. She's lost her tether to real people. She thinks the whole world is the New York Times.
Maybe Megyn Kelly is right. Rachel Maddow might have genuinely lost touch with reality. At this point, it's beyond political bias. It feels like she's broadcasting from an entirely different universe. Her worldview appears tightly sealed, insulated from dissenting opinions and immune to inconvenient truths. She operates within an echo chamber so thick that facts rarely penetrate it. And maybe, just maybe, it'll take voices like Jon Stewart or Bill Maher, fellow liberals who haven't completely bowed to tribal loyalty, to snap her out of it. Both men, while clearly left-leaning, have demonstrated moments of independent thought and the courage to call out their own side. A harsh, unscripted dose of truth from them might be the only thing sharp enough to pierce Maddow's media bubble, and that brings us to the end of today's video. If you appreciated our candid look at Rachel Maddow's apparent detachment, hit the like button and subscribe for more straight shooting takes just like this.